Hello and welcome to this new episode of TDO. Now, hopefully you can recognise one of these. It's an Amiga 500 and, in my opinion, the best computer that's ever been made, and it's dear to my heart. This is the one I owned, I dreamt about and then bought in 1989, and then around 1990 I think I got a program called Amos and I thought I could program a game, and so I did, and I had it published by a local public domain company called Virus Free PD, and it is in my opinion probably the worst Amiga game ever made. That's maybe me being a bit hard on myself, but let's have a look at it and you can make a decision, and well, let's have a look. I wrote Cross System between 1990 and 91, and it was first advertised for sale by Virus Free PD in the May editions of Amiga Format and Amiga Power. Rather than being a free public domain game, it was published as exclusiveware with a slightly higher cost and of course only available from Virus Free PD. Samples of the game were sent to the usual Amiga magazines, and we heard Amiga Power were to review it in their July issue. When the magazine hit the shelves, I rushed out to buy a copy. There in the Also Reviewed section was listed Cross System. Hurriedly I thumbed through the pages to get to the review. On one page was the Virus Free PD advert extolling the silky smooth scrolling and much more. On the other side was a small section titled X-Rated Wares. Half the review was about this new type of game from a public domain company which wasn't public domain. Then they continued by stating it was slickly done, using Amos and Deluxe Paint 3, and having a distinctly commercial feel to it. But then the review took a very negative turn. Although pretty to look at, they felt it was bereft of any real gameplay, being confusing and boring, and crashing their Amiga every time a life was lost. They put in the final kick with, "As the intro trumpets, this game certainly isn't PD, and it's right too. It's not that good." The best Amiga shopper had to say was to mention it in passing. Cross System by Microcinema, which is sort of a science fiction platform game. But Amiga Power weren't quite finished though. A couple of months later, while reviewing another Virus Free PD exclusiveware title, they state that the new game was a big step up from the last exclusiveware effort, the pretty hopeless Cross System. Unfortunately, I no longer have this original version of Cross System, and have been unable to locate it anywhere. If you have this game, please get in contact. I would love to relive just how awful it truly is. Not deterred by poor reviews though, I agreed to create an updated version 2 of the game. Virus Free PD may have jumped the gun though, by advertising Cross System 2 for sale in the October 91 edition of CU Amiga, alongside the original Cross System. Because it wasn't until April of 92 that the game was in any fit state to be sent out. With minimal playtesting, it was advertised again in the August 92 editions of CU Amiga and Amiga Format. Being under the new Central Licenseware banner, it was sold by multiple public domain software companies, even being sold outside the UK in Nordic countries by Softler Software from Adverts and Dator magazine. So let's take a look at Cross System 2. This game also provides an excellent insight into what popular culture was influencing me in my late teens. Let's boot this Amiga 500 with a copy. First we have a nice loading screen, which I had nothing to do with. This was put on by Virus Free PD, quite prophetic that they labelled this the first of their bad series. Then we have an Amiga DOS 1.3 command window, looking like it's wearing a version 2 colour scheme. One last loading screen states that this is a Central Licenseware Register official disc. To save having a paper manual, a simple menu for game instructions was included. I wonder what influenced me to create a teletype effect though. Let's move along, shall we, and start the game. Greeted with a cinematic star sequence, more Star Trek references, and a faithful rendition of the Blade Runner theme, it's a promising start. never met or spoke to Ian Davenport. His music was given to me via virus-free PD. I've tried looking him up, but a likely match on Twitter turned out not to be him. I'll upload 2 other videos to my channel, showcasing in full both of Ian's tracker tunes featured in this game for your enjoyment. Thankfully we were not sued for copyright infringement. I guess one of the benefits of being a terrible game. At least I knew well enough to provide a level code system, but for now, we just skip it. This shuttle and shuttle bay look familiar, don't they? So maybe I like Star Trek a bit. Who doesn't? Pressing the joystick button is all that's required to launch the shuttle. No half-hour Elite Dangerous learning curve here, and no sooner are you clear of the shuttle bay than you run into a near impenetrable shower of asteroids. You would have thought a race of beings advanced enough to be spacefaring would have mounted some weapons on the front of their shuttles. The number in red is the distance countdown, with the grey number being the number of hits you can survive. And everything on screen is composed of sprites, supplied by the forever wonderful Denise. The copper likely being used by Amos for sprite multiplexing to get more than 8 on screen at one time. Get used to these words, you'll see them frequently. To add insult to injury, you get sent all the way back to the main titles. Eventually you'll be lucky and get a pattern that's navigable enough for you to clear the asteroids. At which point you fly into a large grey shredded wheat.
With whatever force necessary. Terminate that beam. Fire when ready.
Oh, of course, the Borg ship from the best of both worlds.
Again, Mr. Wolf.
It's the pinnacle of next-gen Trek. You better write down this code. You'll need it. The first big boss used my newly learned chrome effect. Where the blue sky is being reflected from is anybody's guess. Doesn't the shape look familiar though?
Ed 209.
Why they felt the need to remake the seminal Robocop is beyond me. Suddenly you've got a weapon, and all you have to do is hit the boss 79 times without being hit more than 9 yourself. Going behind it might give a respite, but unfortunately you can't fire backwards or turn around. And your demise is signalled by a fatal attack of curly fries. Unfortunately, not an over-exuberant explosion. Frequently the game will show a sequence of colours and a message that any Amiga fan will instantly recognise. Oh dear, perhaps Amiga Power were right. Finishing off the big boss inflicts a plague of curly fries on it instead. The game was released around the time of the CDTV launch, and I believe I was paid with an actual CDTV, which I still own to this day. A gods-like fanfare announces the switch to a platform game. And our protagonist has now sprouted legs. Hardly killing game show caliber though. More Star Trek references, and a fade to black because I couldn't get a transporter effect to work in time. And of course, I always recommend a near impossible pixel perfect jump to ease the player into any game. I was at least kind enough to use a near imperceptible different shade of brown on the tiles that disappear though. Reaching a power control will shut down the power to the whole level for a short while. Although transporters and jump pads won't work, the shield barriers can now be crossed. There are the usual coloured keys and doors, but on the first level these can be ignored. That and landmines, lots of them, unavoidably so. There are a total of 20 levels, but I'll skip to level 12 now, for a reason that will become clear soon. And who knew the Borg were into polished stone decor? Those glass jars look familiar. Maybe I should just take off and nuke the game from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Unfortunately, this is where most journeys will end. Due to the lack of game testing, there is an impossible jump to the exit of level 12. If there were complaints, we may have fixed it at a later date, but I don't remember for sure. When you do open doors, you discover that the Borg ship is severely in need of a good oiling. At the end of level 20 you encounter the central Borg computer, with a real clear mission statement. Finding your weapon working again, you fire past the Borg's polished marble shields to land a hit on the Borg brain. Just rinse and repeat 69 times. Unfortunately, try as I might, I could not beat my own game, so I used original thinking and changed the rules. In other words, I cheated. As I no longer have the source code, I used the WinUAE debugger to locate the shield hit counter and replace it with a larger value. I don't remember if the strange effect on the hit counter sprite was in the game originally, or whether it is a symptom of me cheating. So, after you struggle through all of that, do I make it worth your while? Well, yes actually. Albeit with a ripped off Shadow the Beast dual playfield parallax scroller. And another great mix from Ian. Not bad considering I was using Amos and poking the hardware directly. I don't think this end sequence has seen the light of day for nearly 27 years. And despite having to play my terrible game, I did enjoy setting it free again. So, what do you think? Is it the worst Amiga game ever made? Or am I being too hard on myself? I'm going to hold a poll, and it's going to ask two questions. The first one is it the worst Amiga game ever made? Simple, yes, no. I'll let you decide that. And the other question is going to be, should I update it? Should I have a go? Now, I've forgotten most of what I've learned about programming, so it might take me a while, and this could be a long-term project. So should I just rip it up, start from scratch? Are any of the graphics worth keeping? The music's great, but obviously there's that copyright issue with the Blade Runner soundtrack. So I think this time it should be original inspiration rather than just copying from bits all over the place. So what do you think? Comments below. Hit that like button. You know, if you like the video, not if you like the game. I understand, that's what the poll's for. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.
Let me see your identification. We don't need to see his identification. Follow me. Move on. Move on.